Today will be a review of the Kobo 475, and this is one of my most favorite amplifiers, after testing so many of them. And that's because it has a very unique sound signature that I'll talk about within this review here. Now, I want to say first that this is actually originally loaned to me from Jaben, and Jaben was kind enough to loan me a set to try out. I really like it and I purchased my own set. This is serial number 97 and I have used it for about 2 weeks now. Now this amp here is, Kobo. This is a very nice brush aluminum amp, and it's a very simple construction, really nothing too special about it. But I always feel that there's something different about Kobo amps is that, especially for this one, you notice that there are these perfection yet imperfections that feels very handcrafted, See these lines here? Not the same. Very, very neat lines here. Then suddenly that this is different. And then, this box here is different. Everything is just like that. This amp just have so many small little perfections and imperfections that make it look very unique, if you ask me. Look at the hole punch. There's also a dent here that is a bit off. But this is all part of the charm, I guess. But okay, that being said, I still really like the physical aspect. It is nice, it doesn't attract fingerprint, and it looks really good. It has 4 batteries inside here. You can use both AA rechargeables and non-rechargeables, and it will work pretty fine. Now with the rechargeable batteries such as the Analog Pro here, it lasts for anywhere from 6 hours to 10 hours depending on the volume or the headphones you are powering. It is pretty good, the battery life itself. Then you can see inside here there is the gain switch. I never use it because there was no reason to lift the gain beyond low. In fact, low is also too much because even on low, on very sensitive IEMs, you only have this much play with it. So that's something to note. Now, this amp has a few things on the front panel, and that's the only place with anything at all. So first, there's a power switch. The power switch is decoupled from the volume knob, which is good. So when you power it up, a light will show, and then you will play at the volume you set. Now this is a good thing because a lot of the more portable amps use this kind of switches. The bad thing of this kind of switches is that you need to reset it every time you on the amp, which can be quite irritating. This is instant on and you're at the correct volume itself. Now, if you have more than one headphone or earphone, maybe you can't feel a difference. But if you use only constantly one earphone or headphone with this amp, you will actually appreciate that it's decoupled itself. Now, the volume knob is quite smooth. Not the smoothest, but it's actually quite smooth, and the amount of resistance is just nice for portable usage because you see, if I was to rub my finger, it doesn't just turn suddenly. So it keeps the volume as consistent as possible here. Now you can notice that this is the USB-C, this is not a DAC, so it doesn't do any digital conversion. This also doesn't charge the amp. It's only meant to power the amp, and you can only use the old-fashioned 5-volt chargers. Now, what I mean is that those that USB-A to USB-C, not pure USB-C type, because the USB-C to USB-C normally are PDs, and you plug in, nothing happens, right? So the next thing here, you notice that this is the input balance and unbalance switch. What it does is that it changes this 4.4 input, and it accepts unbalanced and balanced signal itself. If you put it here and put a balanced signal in, it sounds correct. And if you push it down to unbalanced and put a balanced signal in, it sounds wrong. It feels like one channel or some weird off phase problem. It's really, really weird. So what it does is that if you have an interconnect that goes from 4.4 to 3.5 and you plug it in and then plug the unbalanced into, say, a digital audio player that only has a unbalanced output, it will work by pushing this down. Now then on the left side here, these are the output ports. There is a balanced 4.4 output, and then there is an unbalanced 3.5 output. They did say very specifically, do not plug an unbalanced output here, right? Do not plug an unbalanced headphone into here. If you do that, they will say that this may spoil the product. It's possible, it may short circuit. That's why I do not recommend to use an adapter. Now, this thing, as I said, accepts unbalanced, but I recommend that you buy an interconnect, not an adapter, to change the 4.4 to a unbalanced input itself. So that is something to note, right? That's about it for the physical aspect of it. Now, one last thing about the physical aspect is that the words on the front panel are printed on it, and they can get scratched off. You can notice that this is the part, it writes unbalanced HP. Now the thing is that because I use this for review, I plug in and out my headphones very often. Occasionally the 4.4 tip will rub against the words and you can see that it's already worn off within 2 weeks. That's something to note. So this thing over time will get worn off, but I can imagine that it's not very hard to replace the plate. It feels very simple to replace. In fact, I think if you just ask the manufacturer, they probably can give you a new front plate to replace. And that's about it. This is the 475 when it comes to the physical aspect of things. Now, this weighs about half a kg, so it's actually quite stable, no issues here, and it's actually quite big. So if you have seen my earlier impression, you will know that this size is actually quite huge. I put it next to my M17, you can see, and to put more representative, I put this is a pen knife. You can see that the pen knife is very small compared to it. Now, before I go into sound quality, I'll just say that the specs of this M isn't impressive. I'll just paste it online. The specs are very normal looking. In fact, lower than some dongles, but I can tell you that these outperform dongles easily in terms of power and enjoyment. So without wasting time, let's talk about sound quality. Now, sound quality of this amp, well, it's a solid state amp. It sounds like a solid state amp. It's very clean, very nice. Everything is just right. You know, it's not a tube amp, so you don't expect like euphoric and smoothness and extreme warmness. No. This is not going to happen for this amp. But there are two distinct differences and two not so distinct difference when comparing this amp to many other solid state amps. Now, I have a lot of solid state amps. As I said, Suranagi here. I can show you the Emblem here. I also have the Broadway, which I reviewed previously. A70 Pro, Ferrum Ore. I have a lot of solid state amps, and I prefer solid state amps for a good reason, because they are easy to move around, they are not touchy, not finicky, right? So this amp has two significant differences. First, it has a slightly laid back sound. Now, it's not ultra laid back, it's not very laid back, it's just slightly laid back sound. But it is, I would say, significant enough that switching this and other amps, you will notice it. I tried it just now with the A70 Pro, I tried it with the Suranagi, I tried it with the Ferrum Ore. I can always hear that this amp at the same volume always feels more laid back. That is the first difference. The second difference is the soundstage. This amp always feels larger in soundstage, regardless of headphones, regardless of soundtrack. And normally soundstage, I would just imagine there's a wall of the sound. So the sound extends to a certain age limit for the headphones itself. And with this amp, I always notice that no matter what headphone, it's always bigger, always like this 10 to 20% bigger. The other amp that has this effect is the current mode amp in Emblem. So in current mode, Emblem also has this effect for planar headphones. But this applies to any headphones, which is the most impressive part. It increases the soundstage of even small soundstage headphones, such as, my T+A Solitaire T. That is a small soundstage headphone, and with this, it sounds bigger and better. Right, so these are the two significant differences. The two minor differences are that the transient age of instruments are more distinct. It's very clean, very clear, and as such, when you hear music, you feel like the instruments are more accurate or something. I don't know how to say it. It feels like more real and more clean. I noticed that a lot on the Verite Close, but my wife feels that they are too realistic sounding for some reason. It's like, it feels too realistic to you, it's out of place kind of feel. That's what she says. Personally, I do enjoy that characteristics. Now, that characteristic is not very strong. It only appears in my Verite Close and some of the other headphones. It doesn't appear in every single headphone, and it's not super noticeable unless you really focus on them. The next thing that is noticeable is also the bass impact. The bass impact on this is, I would say, it's slightly tighter and cleaner than other amplifiers itself. Now, is it significantly more tight or significantly more clean? No. Compared to the A70 Pro, the Suranagi, or even Ferrum Ore, it's just this slight difference. It doesn't have more bass. No, it doesn't have more bass. It doesn't have more sub bass. It's just a slightly cleaner impact. Now, if you say sub bass wise, I think the sub bass on this is not the best. I will say as there are other amps that shake my headphones better. So that's something to note here. Now, other than that, I feel that this is a very competent solid state amp. I don't have much complaint in sound signature, other than, whatever I said so far. Whether is it a complaint to you or a compliment to you, that's up to you to think about. But really, there is nothing else I want to talk about in terms of sound quality for this amp, because it is just like any other competent solid states. Now, when it comes to pairing, however, there are some slight issues, especially with IEMs. Now, with headphones, no issue. I have run many headphones, such as the Stealth here, my MM500. You can see there's MM500 here, and I also run with the Abyss. This is my Diana Phi, and I also run it with the 1266 Abyss before, and I can tell you that all the headphones do work nicely on this amp. For headphone wise, there is not a single headphone that this amp cannot run. It can run it to very listenable level without any distortion and still sound really good with all the characteristics I talked about earlier. So no issues on headphone here. Now for IEMs, however, there is some issues and I'll talk about it. For non-sensitive IEMs such as the 武则天 here, this is like 100 dB per milliwatt. No issues here, it doesn't create any problems. But with very sensitive IEMs such as the SIM-God here, this is the EA1000 at 127 dB per milliwatt. Well, this amp picks up electronic noise. I mean electronic noise, not ground loop, not ground hum, but electronic noise. What do I mean by that? Now this is your depth, right? You on it, there's a capacitive screen. This screen actually produces noise in very sensitive amplifiers. You can actually feel your finger moving towards it and touching it. You will sound like zzz, zzz, zzz kind of thing, right? And this noise is not like, proximity problem. It is a transmission problem. So when I actually plug it in like that, no matter I put my depth close or depth far, if I was to use the SIM-God EA1000 with the touch panel on, I will hear the electronic noise. The only way to use it is to disable, or should I say off the screen, use the manual buttons, and then disable Wi-Fi, put it on air flight mode and whatever, and then the SIM-God EA1000 is very usable on this amp. I say very usable because occasionally you can still hear the click, click, click sound. Well, it's just very sensitive to electronic noise, and as I said, it's nothing to do with distance. Now, if you use a dongle, it will sound better than a depth for some reason, at least for my M17. Maybe some other depths will be better, I'm not too sure. Maybe I try it more in the future and tell you guys about it. But so far, I found this particular issue with the mesh Kobo here. It's very sensitive to electronic sound being transmitted through the wires itself. Other than that, there is not much complaint. This is a really, really nice amp. A soundstage improvement is something I really, really like, and overall, the things that improve on this is something I like. I mean, the laid-back sound is something that you may not like, but for certain headphones, it's very enjoyable. Overall, I do think that this is a unique headphone amplifier, as long as it's not using sensitive IEMs and you are okay with whatever I said so far in terms of sound signature. I think this is something worthy to try and consider. Do note that this is a portable amp. This is not your full class A or some special big desktop amps itself. There are downsides such as the total amount of power that it can output. Even though I say that it can run the 1266 for me, it may not be able to run the 1266 for you, because if you listen really, really, really loud, I think this amp may run out of power. But personally, I have not faced it so far. I always run it to levels that I feel quite uncomfortable. I do not listen to beyond that level. And this amp does still perform at those levels itself, at least for me. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching this video. Do like and subscribe, that will motivate me to create more of such videos. And also, if you have any comments, do write down in the comments section below, because I will read them and respond to them. I think the Mesh Kobo 475 is a very unique amplifier and it's something worthy to try out because it really does sound different. And with that, I'll thank you again. See you next time. Bye bye.